percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely you're gonna get that number 1 seed, and so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 to 8.
We want Houston to be ranked number 1 in the AP, and we are live off the heels of that sweet intro for another episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. I said, Chris, we had something new for today's episode, and we had to shake it up a little bit because on the court, this game was over by halftime. The Houston Cougars absolutely dominated the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and believe it or not, it was a game that the Golden Hurricane actually led around the 13-minute mark, 10-9, and from that point on, Houston went on an absurd, I'm confusing the numbers, I'm pretty sure it's a 37-8 run. Yeah, it was a 37-8 run that Houston went on to end the first half, and by all intents and purposes, the game was over at that stretch. You know, Tulsa started the game shooting 4 or 5 from the field.
Hold up.
They ended the half.
Excuse me, Mr. Yanez. Excuse me.
Oh.
No. I want to give credit to whoever, if it was you or whoever did that intro. That was nice, man. Who was that?
That was fire. I gotta give credit to it. It was fire.
I was gonna get to it. I appreciate it. It was me. I made it up today.
Bravo,
it was in my head.
Great job.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It goes into countdown leading into the intro. That way we're not kind of I always felt it was awkward when I started the stream and I was staring at the countdown and then had to look back to the camera. So that's gonna be our intro heading into the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament and into the NCAA tournament. So if you like it, give it a like and be sure to subscribe to the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. But like I digress. Like I was saying, at one point when Tulsa led 10-9, they were shooting 4 for 5 from the field, and then from that point forward, Houston held them to 3 of 23 shooting, and really Marcus Sasser just caught fire to end that first half. He went on a personal 12-0 run. He had 19 points at halftime. But without getting into more specifics of the game, joining me as always, Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, Dayon Dunlap. How are you two doing? Thank you for joining me as always.
I'm doing great, man. Like I said, like Dayon said, that intro was fire. It was 10-7 Tulsa. And then Marcus Sasser went on that 12-0 run. Halftime, Marcus Sasser 19, Tulsa 18. So, yeah, the game was over. It was great. But, Dayon, you got it too, man. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing good, man. That intro was fire. Away from that Andy, hey.
Yeah, we had to change it up. It just adds to the
very
mix.
good, man.
Adds the fire.
And we'll have some news to share at some point about merch, some T-shirts. Yeah, working on that too. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. Onward and upward, as we always say.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, really, where to start? The Cougs defense was just the first 5 minutes a half step off. And Tulsa scored their 10 points. And then Marcus Sasser said, forget this. I'm going to lock it down on defense, set a tone defensively. And then that led to his offense and the team's offense, and they were off and running. And it was just, for Coug fans who've been questioning the rebounding, wasn't a problem tonight. 53-27, Cougs on the boards. They dominated like almost every facet of the game. It was good to see. It's good, one of those, what's it called? A get-right game for the Cougs. Yeah. That's what they did tonight. So, took care of business.
Yeah, and that's what stood out to me. I think also made them so effective was their rebounding, especially on the defensive end. Guards coming in, getting the rebounds, and being able to push the break, which allowed them to not have to play in a half-court set against their defense. And for me, I think that was the key that stuck out. The defense is locked down like it's been all year, but they were able to control the boards, especially defensively, to get out and transition, to get the ball movement and just create non-scripted plays. And so I think that's what aided them, and I think that will aid them if they can continue to do that going forward.
Yeah, Tremont Mark had 7 of his rebounds in the first half, 7 of his 9 rebounds in the first half, set the tone. You know, it doesn't have to be Jarris or Juan all the time. The guards can rebound too. So Tremont did that. It was good to see. And Jarris still got his boards as well. So it was good to see. And Coach Sampson kind of nipped this in the bud for anybody saying, oh, Jarris Walker had an off game. Coach Sampson, no, he didn't. He just didn't score because he didn't have to, really. I mean, that's what it was. He still had 6 points, 8 rebounds, and he had hockey assists. He might have had a direct assist, but he had the assist led to the pass that led to the assist. So a great win for everybody. Great performance by a lot of players.
Oh, he absolutely addressed that. It kind of looked like he was angry, but when he said that remark about Jarvis Walker having saying that he didn't have an off game, he made the right plays. And again, he went out and said that this team, they're not selfish. They don't care how many points they score. They care about helping each other out. And nobody asked him that. It was just something that Kelvin Sampson went on in and of himself. But rebounding, and that's kind of the key of the game, because especially at halftime, they had 11 offensive rebounds. Houston overall as a team missed 20 shots. So going back to what Kelvin Sampson said earlier in the season, that means they were hitting on all cylinders in that aspect. He wants for the team to be able to get 50% of the misses that his team has. So they check that box at halftime. And again, the suffocating defense that they had on Tulsa during the middle of the stretch when it was a Marcus Sasser's personal 12-0 run. There was a stretch there when Sasser was just hounding I can't remember who was the person he was guarding. And he stayed step for step with him. There was nowhere. He literally didn't give him a single amount of breathing room for him to be able to move and really do anything with the ball. He ended up, long story short, that Tulsa player ended up passing it to Keyshawn Emery Simpson, who Tremont Mark was guarding. And then same thing, Tremont Mark was hounding him. They led to a really, really tough shot. Tremont Mark ended up getting the rebound, push it ahead, and Marcus Sasser had an easy layup. And that was really kind of the signature for Houston during that impressive run where Tulsa just couldn't match. They didn't have an answer for it.
Tremont's defense over these last 3 or 4 games has been elite. He's been really, really guarding an elite level, just containing the basketball, his length and his activity, and his relentlessness going after the basketball, going after the rebound. Didn't really make shots at a hot clip tonight, but he still had a good game. I think Coach Sampson said he had 3 good games coming in. I think he probably add this one as 4, because the way he's been defending it's really been energetic, and it's been really, really impressive.
And after the play that Andy described, the next possession down, Emmanuel Sharp just took the ball from a Tulsa guard, started another transition, and I think that ended in a Sasser 3-pointer. So as Deion has wanted to see more of, and fans as well, want to see more of the Cougs defense led to Cougs offense. So it's good to see the Cougs got easier buckets tonight. They scored in a lot of different ways. Tulsa's rebuilding, and they're clearly nowhere in the class of this year's Cougs team. And the Cougs showed it on the court. It may have taken them a little bit to get it started, but once they got it started, it was rolling for most of the game.
Real quickly, before we transition, I'd like to remind everybody that they are watching and or listening live wherever you may be listening. If you're watching us live on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, if you're listening the next day, or whenever you may be listening audio only on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get pods, time, and jammer, that this is Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Kris, down. Maybe the team was just kind of maybe they felt motivated because Justin Gorham was sitting front row, so they got a little bit of that board man mentality with them, but that was certainly a strength for them in this game. Now, I do want to talk about Jarvis Walker, who, like Kelvin Sampson said, if you look at it from a scoring perspective, he didn't necessarily have an eye-popping game, even though he did have an eye-popping play, literally one of the early plays in the first half when again, that's something where Kris, Deion, we've talked about just that change in mindset. He was aggressive. He knew what he was going to do. He shot fake, made a straight beeline towards the rim, and threw down a two-handed monster slam that really energized the Fertitta Center. But I think the biggest thing when it comes to Jarvis Walker, you look at stat sheet, this is something that Kelvin Sampson is going to be looking at. Walker had 8 rebounds total. 3 of them were offensive rebounds. And that's something that from his freshman, he's kind of pointed out the last few games. And it's something that Walker showed improvement in tonight against Tulsa.
Yeah. And I'm not going to be petty or anything, but yeah, 3 offensive rebounds is good to see. He was more aggressive. The ball found him sometimes with his energy. He had the great pump fake on the 3-pointer and then the baseline drive for the jam. But rebounding, as Deion says, Andy said, as I've said, it's effort. You go get the ball, and the energy will find you. The ball will find you as well. So the Cougs, almost every Cougs that played got a rebound. I think the only person who didn't was Ryan Elvin. So nine Cougs got at least 1 rebound tonight. That's effort. That's going after the ball and not waiting for your teammate to go get it. You went and got it yourself. So 53-27 on the boards. That's Cougar basketball. And Coach Sampson said, and I was kind of curious, surprised he said this about the team defensively. He said that Tulsa just missed a lot of open shots. It wasn't necessarily so much, the Cougs defense. Coach is kind of soft pilling that one. Cougs played good defense tonight. They were contested a lot of Tulsa shots, and Tulsa missed because of the Cougs' pressure defense.
I kind of feel Coach Sampson on that. They did play good defense, but at the same time, Tulsa missed shots that we've seen other teams make against Houston. And if they make those shots, it's a closer game. So, but that's basketball. I mean, yeah, I can see that. But still, man, Houston, going back to Jarris, I think he's just making good decisions. I think they were making a conscious effort to run him off the three-point line. He did a good job of not settling for the three and putting it on the floor, whether it's driving, making plays for others, getting hockey assists. So he did a good job of just allowing the game to come to him and doing what the game dictates. He didn't really force anything. He wasn't hunting any shots. He looks to be playing in a very comfortable and a very good rhythm right now.
To add to the point, I think early on, again, starting to where Tulsa they started 4 for 5, and they really had a lot of open looks. They had a couple of corner threes where they were open, and then they got a couple of points in the paint. I think Houston did turn up the intensity defensively, but I think it's interesting to note from that aspect where maybe there is some areas to improve, but I think overall there's not really much margin of error that they had overall as a team. Now, before we kind of transition and we check out what Kelvin Sampson had to say post-game following this game, kind of circling back to Sasser, and really when he's on, he's on. He can flip the switch, and he did it tonight. That was a big reason why Houston kind of buried Tulsa. What did you guys see during that stretch? Like Kris mentioned, he had a personal 12-0 run when Houston trailed 10-7 that really helped put the game away. And a lot of them, it kind of started with his defense, but he did it. Everything that we know he does. He hit a couple of transition threes probably over a month ago now. Kelvin Sampson said that's kind of Marcus Sasser's favorite shot. He likes to hunt those transition threes, and the team does a good job at being able to find him. But just overall, he looked really, really comfortable, especially in that first half. I thought he was going to set a new career high with the way he was playing down the stretch.
He probably could have if it was necessary. I mean, his career high of 31 points. If he'd have taken more shots, he could have got that. But it wasn't necessary tonight. This game was over at halftime. Marcus defensively set a tone. And then in his 12-0 run, he scored, I think, layup, runner, three. He mixed it up, all three levels of his offensive game. So it's great to see him. Anyone wondering about Marcus in a slump or whatever, he showed you he can still get buckets when necessary.
Yeah, he did show his ability to score on all three levels, and that's what I was stood out to me. And that's what I keep mentioning, but that was that next step of development for him, was being able to consistently score when your 3-point shot isn't falling. He's done that all year, and he's starting with getting inside, getting into the paint, getting into his mid-range, but he's really just seeing the floor right. He's being able to read the coverages, read what the defense is doing, and making the right play. So I just think overall, as a point guard, as a guard, he's really taking that next step to being able to, I think he can control the game now as a point guard without having to score, as well as because his playmaking has taken another step. So I just think overall, transitioning to that next level, he's taken and probably checked all the boxes with what the scouts told him. I know he probably feels like he still can get more better. Of course, he can. There's no ceiling on development, but he's definitely is developing to where he needed to coming into this season, I'm sure.
And I want to give credit to Jamal Mark
YouTube
as well, because Jamal picked up two fouls and sat down, and Jamal ran the offense pretty well, and Emmanuel came in, did his job, and Marcus did. So they didn't miss a beat with Jamal on the bench with those two fouls. Jamal's first half was like 9.7 rebounds in like 17 minutes. So that's a game sometimes for Jamal. He did it in the first half. So he really as Dion touched on it, I think this would be his fourth very good game for the Cougs. So I think his quad injuries lessening. He's playing much more aggressive and more decisive offensively and defensively. So it's just another positive for the team going forward.
What I was going to say, Jack Cox, who's a viewer on YouTube watching live on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. You want to be a part of the conversation, you have to check us out live on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. But Jack says Jarris has been a rebounding machine last couple of games since coach called him out in that little bit during the previous games in regards when it comes to his rebounding. Kris, like you mentioned, the intro, who were you talking about in that intro from that clip that we pulled?
Mr. Walker, Jarris Walker,
And
about the comment. Yeah, the comment about Jarris as rebound, because he's on the perimeter, and as if Jarris has to stand on the perimeter. Jarris can go get the ball too when the shot is missed. He's done that lately, so that's what I was talking about. Jarris rebounding.
We'll leave it on that note. We'll take a break real quickly. Once again, a reminder to everybody that's watching live and or listening, audio only, whenever you may be listening, that you are watching and or listening to Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Of course, we also want to say thank you to our other partners for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family, beginning with Star Pizza. They have been Houston's best pizza since 1976, with various locations across the Houston area. Be sure to visit them at starpizza.net, where not only you can check out their menu, but you can order online, so you can just stop by with any one of the locations and pick up on the go. And of course, HOUNIL, and we'll send it over to Javier Francis and check out a message that he had to say in regards to HOUNIL.
Hi, my name is Javier Francis, and I'm partnering with HOUNIL. Hey, we need the fans to go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to our player-created content. Supporting Cougar basketball helps us players stay among the top teams in the country. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com to subscribe. Thank you, and go Cougs.
Once again, that was Houston Cougars big man Javier Francis. His message is to go subscribe to HOUNIL starting at just $20 a month. You can do so at HOUNIL.com. And on that note, we'll toss it over to head coach Kelvin Sampson here, what he had to say post-game following Houston's 80-42 victory over Tulsa.
Yeah, Kelvin, on the ball movement, just what Jamal's been able to do over this recent stretch. His assist to turnover ratio is close to like 8-1, something like that. Just how he's taking care of the ball and found people.
Yeah. One of the things that Jamal had to get better at was his singles. Beat Tom Brady, not Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes can throw 45-yard post routes on the dime. Whereas Tom Brady get 45 yards, he just throws it a 2-yard hook or screen pass, and the guy runs 45. His singles. A guy that throws those 45-yard post routes are those are grand slams. You're not going to live off those. So make the right play, make the easy play, hit singles. Tom Brady's made a career out of hitting singles. It's not interesting in what other people think of his arm. He wins. Singles wins games. Home runs, you can hit a home run, but you might strike out 3 times trying to hit another one. Whereas a single, those singles wins a lot more games over time.
Coach, can you talk about really that stretch there at the end of the first half where I think you guys outscored them 38-7, and really you guys were keen in on rebound. You guys had 11 offensive rebounds off the 20 misses in the first half, and you held them to 3 of 23 shooting. How strong of a performance was that to close out the first half?
Yeah, well, that's what we've made our living on around here for a long time. We've defended and we've rebounded. There's 362 or 363 Division I schools in America. I think we're going into the night with number 8 ranked defensive team in the country. Same amount of teams, and I think we were 6th on offense. So we're a good defensive team. We're a good rebounding team, not great. I've had some great rebounding teams, but we're still good. We're still a good rebounding team. But we're working to get better. A season's a lot like an elevator, either going up or going down. You always work to go up. We worked on that today. Worked on it yesterday. Worked on it the day before. We're always working on something we need to get better at. And then you see them come out tonight, you see the fruits of their labors. You see why we work. It's where we get good at it. And it's not easy to be good. You know, the problem with being 23-2 sometimes is the record is for us is irrelevant. What's relevant is how much better can we get this time of year.
A few things there that stood out. First, audio issues with University of Houston. I don't know what happened there, where it started echoing from outside. But the first thing when he was talking about Jamal Shead and his assist, that's something that I remember he said. I believe it was the year they made the Final Four. Kelvin Sampson said the same thing about Dejan Jarreau and kind of what he had to learn. Really, when he first got to the program, to where he was playing at that level, at that elite level, the year they made that Final Four, and it was he said the exact same phrase. He had to learn to be Tom Brady instead of Patrick Mahomes and trying to make the flashy passes, the hard passes, and just make the simple, like he described in that clip. In regards to Jamal Shead, the singles, which come the end of the season, the more singles you have, those are going to help you win a lot more games rather than trying to go for a home run every time you're at bat.
Yeah, Coach, he said that he wants his point guard, he'd like his point guard to keep it simple. And, the home run, the fancy pass is not always the best pass. So that's what Coach is saying. And Jamal's been very good last few games. His biggest issue last few games is his foul trouble. But his assist numbers have been solid. Assist and the scoring when he needs to, but he keeps it simple, simplifies the game. 12 assists tonight. I think that's one off his career high for assists. Very solid floor game for Jamal.
Yeah, and I think it's more than tricky passes or flashy passes. I think it's kind of along the line what Kris is saying as far as keeping it simple. And it could be as simple as driving and trying to make a skip pass instead of just moving the basketball, getting into the offense. So I think it's more about staying in the rhythm of the game instead of trying to force a play. It doesn't necessarily have to be making a tricky pass, but Jamal has been great at that. That stat that he asked him a question is what they were talking about on the broadcast, that he has that really good assist to turnover ratio. And I think Jamal, he's really smart with the basketball. He's really looked like a coach on the floor. I see him directing players on different plays on where he want them to be, where they should be. I'm watching him in different rotations. He's in the right spot at the right time. So outside of being a point guard, I think he's the point guard on the defense as well, with their front line defense, setting the pressuring the basketball, and just talking and communicating.
And and I want to acknowledge the team, the players. This was, I think, their third game in 6 days. They played Thursday, Sunday, and today. 2 road games, and then this home game, and they won all of them. And the last game of the 3 was their biggest, blowout in terms of margin of victory. So I think the bench has stepped up. Coach has done a really good job of balancing and resting his starters when he can. And you can see the guys like Emmanuel Sharp do a good job come off the bench. Reggie Chaney, solid. Javier Francis, you saw the good and the bad of Javier Francis. He had 2 really good low post finishes, and then 1 or 2 like, ooh, what happened there? Big man. But the potential is, you saw that in him as well. So a solid win for the team. And it's good that they don't play again until next Thursday. So they're going to get some time off, some much needed time to rest, do some, rehab, recouping. They're off Thursday, I think Coach said, and then practice Friday, Saturday, then off Sunday. So this break will be really beneficial for them.
Yeah, one of the things Coach talked about, they're going to have Thursday off because he's going to be on a recruiting trip on Thursday. But on the point of Jamal Shead, in this game against Tulsa, he had 12 assists against the Golden Hurricane, only 2 turnovers, which that's a 6-to-1 assist turnover ratio. That's a crazy, absurd, good ratio that you want to have from your point guard. And it's something that, like Dayon said, like you guys have said, just overall throughout the course of the season, in games where, if you look at his points, he only had 3 total points today, but really, again, in a game they didn't really need him to be a scorer, he did a good job at being able to be that distributor all around. And just overall, and again, you got to take it with a big caveat that it was Tulsa, the opponent that they were facing, but I feel like maybe the Cougars offensively are at its best when they have someone, in this case it was Shead, that was distributing all around to all the scores. Now, it does make it easier when Marcus Sasser has it going the way he did in that first half.
Team had 21 assists on 31 baskets. Jamal had 12 of the assists. I'm not sure because the last game was a simple game. We had three guys with at least 5 assists. I think Marcus had 5, Jamal had 5, and Jamal 7. So as long as they get the assist, as long as the ball doesn't stick, the ball movement is fine. And if this team gets 20 assists a game, most likely they're going to win because that means the ball movement. It's a good indication of good ball movement, making shots, obviously. And tonight was taking advantage of an inferior opponent. Coogs did what's necessary to win, 138, and get some time off, much needed time off.
On the topic of assists tonight, Houston had 21 assists on their 31 made baskets to the point you pointed out, Kris. Now, Tremont Mark, we've talked about him in the past. Again, when you look at it, he had 9 points, but I think, again, going back to kind of the rebound, just overall as a team, Houston did a good job rebounding. They had 53 total rebounds, but focusing on the other aspect where Houston hasn't necessarily been as strong in has been defensive rebounding. And going back to the Kelvin Sampson clip, he said they're a good rebounding team. They're not a great rebounding team like he's had with a few teams in the past. And a big reason for that at times has been in defensive rebounding. They just haven't been able to close out those possessions. I mean, the biggest one that sticks in your head most recently was Wichita State and the success that the Shockers had at being able to get second chance points. They did a good job at containing Tulsa at all. I mean, they didn't really leak Tulsa get a lot of offensive rebounds in this game. I'm looking at it. They had 6 total offensive rebounds, which they missed a lot more shots than 12. I'll put it at that. So they did a good job of being able to close out possessions. That's something that they can continue to be more consistent in that aspect. They'd be a really, really good team heading down the stretch, but that's something that Kelvin himself said maybe not necessarily great at. It's certainly at least what they've shown in the past throughout the season.
Well, and that's the key to jumpstarting that transition offense is securing the defensive rebound. And that's what kind of ignited their offense tonight was securing a defensive rebound and getting an outlet pass. Sometimes the guards got the rebound, was able to push, and that way the defense doesn't get set. That way you can move the ball in transition. The defenses rotate. You can get downhill and penetrate. Or like Jamal. So he's so electric in the open floor, and defense knows he has the ability to get downhill. And when he moves so fast, a lot of times you have to react to stop the basketball, and then he just finds the open shooters. But it really bodes well for them when they secure the defensive rebound and they push the break. I want to see Jarish even push the break even more when he gets the defensive rebound because he showed his ability to push that and make the right pass like he made one to, I think it was to Terrence tonight. And so as long as they secure that defensive rebound and get it up the floor quickly, I think that will help their offense along with their assists and everything else we're talking about because they don't have to always go against a set defense.
And I think we can assume that the staff, Coach Sampson and the staff, worked on the guards rebounding, in practice. Because tonight, Marcus had 3 boards, Jamal had 7, Jamal had 9, Emmanuel had 4. So as Dayon touches on, if the guards can rebound, secure a defensive board, then they don't have to pass. They can just get it and go. If it's Jamal or Marcus. And Marcus did that a few times. He got the rebound and pushed the ball up the floor. So that helps out. You can score quicker that way. You have to worry, relying on scoring at half court. If the guards push it up, get the board and go. So if the guards can continue to defense rebound, that'll be a benefit as the season progresses.
Real quickly, I'd like to remind everybody that's watching live that it is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. However you may be listening, we like to take the opportunity to first, if you are watching on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, to take the time and hit the like button. It really helps us out. Of course, while you're at it, hit subscribe on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel if you haven't done so already. Of course, I'll take this opportunity to plug in the Pod Slam and Jamma YouTube channel, where if you're just joining us and you've missed the clip from Houston Cougars head coach Kelvin Sampson, we're going to have a clip momentarily from Emmanuel Sharp and Jawan Roberts and hear from them as well. You can check that out, as well as weekly coverage on Pod Slam and Jam of Houston Cougars football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. And of course, if you're listening on the Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever else you may be listening to, leave us a 5-star rating, whatever rating you feel we deserve on those platforms, because those helps us out as well when it comes to being able to get our name out there. So, of course, any little bit helps and supports us. And also be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Rage Coogs. And of course, we wouldn't be able to do this show without our partners, without our sponsors that really help big time in being able to do this show, beginning with Star Pizza. They are one of today's sponsors of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Star Pizza is Houston's best pizza since 1976. With multiple locations across the Houston area, be sure to visit starpizza.net, where not only you can check out the menu at those locations, but you can order online and just get all types of different contact information, so you can just stop on the go and pick up if that is what you desire. Of course, we also like to thank HOUNIL, and we're going to send it over to JV Francis again for one more message from HOUNIL.
Hi, my name is Xavier Francis, and I'm partnering with HOUNIL. Hey, we need the fans to go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to our player created content. Supporting Cougar basketball helps its players stay among the top teams in the country. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com to subscribe. Thank you, and go Cougs.
Again, go subscribe at HOUNIL.com. Subscriptions start at just $20 a month for player-led, player-created content. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com. Now, on that note, we'll send it over to Jawan Roberts and Emmanuel Sharp and hear what they had to say following Houston's 80-42 win over Tulsa.
Things that you've maybe seen from previous teams that you're sort of seeing that give you optimism, just heading down the stretch.
Just playing with a lot more confidence. Going into the game, not as nervous more, knowing what they need to do and how to help the team. Like Emmanuel and Terrence, they come in and impact the game on the defensive end because we know they can score. And once you have more people that can defend, slow the game down a lot for us too. Get a lot of leak outs, clean rebounds. And just knowing, the freshmen that's coming in and impacting winning, just helps us and makes us still a better team.
How much has your defense improved since you started here?
I would say a lot. I'm more comfortable on the defensive end. The more you play, the more experience you have, you know where to be and what spots to be in. So just being out there on the floor more really helps my defense. So I'm more experienced now, so I'm in my spot now.
I agree with that. Manuel's improved tremendously on defense. Proud of it, Manuel.
You are from November to now mid-February.
Just in all parts, just learning how to play with different lineups, who's out there on the floor, learning, knowing your teammates, like play a different way with Mark and Maul, and just, it's important for me and Terrence and Jay and Reg to come in and give them guys a breather. And just playing well when we're out there gives coach the confidence to have confidence in this bench to put us in when the starters need a break.
And to add to that too, just knowing your role. Just going into the game knowing what you got to focus on and knowing what you got to do to impact the team and help them win.
Juan?
Once again, that was Houston junior forward Jawan Roberts and redshirt freshman guard Emmanuel Sharp that spoke following Houston's victory over Tulsa. Now, when looking at what they said, I think sticking to that final soundbite where they were talking about kind of Emmanuel Sharp's growth, but also how crucial it is for the freshmen heading down the stretch into March. And that's something that Kelvin Sampson said following their win over Temple. But I think it's interesting when you hear Jawan Roberts there kind of chime in towards the end and mention plays that impact winning. Emmanuel Sharp mentioned that being able to give Marcus Sasser, Jamal Shetramon, Mark breathers in, but being able to execute when they're not in the game, especially, again, this is Tulsa, but whenever they're in March and they're playing those close games against different conference opponents and into the NCAA tournament, having that depth with those players being comfortable with their roles is going to be huge. And like Jawan Roberts said, them being able to make plays that impact winning is ultimately could define how far Houston goes in the NCAA tournament.
And I thought about this when Juan said that plays, impact winning. I wonder if that's this season's team mantra, because it used to be culture. But this year, plays that impact winning. We've heard Coach Sampson mention that more, plays that impact winning a lot than previous seasons. So, but Emmanuel Sharp is getting more comfortable. I think Terrence Arthur would have seen more minutes this evening if he hadn't rolled his ankle when he landed on the Tulsa shooter there in the corner.
Yeah.
But hopefully that injury won't be serious, won't be like a high ankle sprain, anything like that, and he can use this 8 days to rest that ankle and heal the ankle. And then, because I think he was going to get more minutes, probably get more shots in this game to help him continue to get better as well. But the bench is playing more minutes. I think Coach Sampson is beginning to trust the young guys a little bit more. Playing Tulsa would help. That helped a little bit tonight too. But I think slowly but surely, Coach is trusting the guys, the freshmen, more to give them minutes in ball games.
Yeah, Chris, I think impact and winning is part of the culture. I think I agree that they are putting an extra emphasis on saying those words instead of culture, but I think that's part of the culture and built his identity. And I say that because just thinking back to Nate, when he got here his freshman year, he was impacting winning by just everything that he did, and his role grew the next year. So I think that's the blueprint, part of the blueprint of the culture, along with rebounding and all those other things that all boils down tying together. But I think Emmanuel said it right. I think what he said was, more importantly, it's earning the trust of Coach Sampson to have us on the floor. Because if you notice, when the game's close or it's a late, Coach Sampson goes to a lineup that he trusts the most. And so I think that's vital for them to continue to gain his trust, that they will impact when be in the right place, like Emmanuel was mentioning, being at the right place at the right time with the rotations and knowing who you playing with and where to be and how to execute. And so I think all of those things are tying in, and they're really putting it all together. Coach Sampson is painting a beautiful picture right now, and I think by the time March comes, early April, we're gonna love the end result.
I like your confidence, man, because early April, you know what that means. you know what that means. That's
Final Four and into the
Final
national
Four and
championship.
championship. So I like that, Dan. So yeah, that sounds good to me, my man.
And on the topic, like you mentioned, of Terrence Arsenault, Kelvin did mention, like you said, he would have played more minutes down the stretch. We're not exactly sure how severe that ankle injury is going to be, but Kelvin said that basically the week off that they're going to have heading into next Thursday's matchup at SMU hopefully gives them plenty of time to be able to recover, but that's going to be something to keep an eye on. But really, we've kind of touched on every little bit down the bottom. Looking at this game against Tulsa, like you guys mentioned earlier, it's kind of a get-right game. Even they're a team that's 23-2. Maybe it's kind of interesting when you say a get-right game.
It's part of the reason the American is viewed the way it is, because there's no games like that in the Big 12.
Well, yeah, you're right. And this was the bottom feeder team in the American, or the basement team that Tulsa came into this night 5-18. Now they fell to 1-11 against other conference opponents. That's their conference record. But you said absolutely right. There's not going to be a night like this in the Big 12 come next season. But at the end of the day, the Houston Cougars can only take care of what's in front of them. Tulsa was the next team that was in front of them, and they took care of business. They didn't really allow them to hang around at all. They did what they were supposed to do. So now, kind of looking ahead, they do have the week off, much needed break, like we've all mentioned. Like King Jaja said, they play SMU, kind of heading into the final stretch here in the regular season. They have 3 road games left at SMU, at East Carolina, and at Memphis, and then they still have a few more home games before they enter the American Athletic Conference schedule. We know Kelvin's answer. He in regards going back to the freshmen and being able to continue to get them comfortable in terms of depth heading down the stretch. But what would you guys say for this last month? Because there's about a month left until the conference postseason tournament. What are kind of the areas that Houston needs to focus on, really, and kind of solidify heading into that tournament?
Defensive rebounding, for sure. I think the guard rebounding, because defensive rebounding, that completes your defensive possession. You can play good defense for 26 seconds, but if you don't get the defensive rebound and your opponent continues to get boards, and that wears you out, and they give them more chance to score. So securing defense rebounding is important. and continuing to utilize the bench in these next few games. And assists, ball movement. Continue to improve, have good ball movement. They do those three things, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I would say exactly what Kris said. To add to that, not only securing the defensive rebound, but when you do that, get out in transition. And also, I want to see them executing the half court, because in the tournament, games are going to slow down. Teams are going to get back, and they're going to force you to execute in the half court set. So I want to see them continue just to work on different sets in the half court, continue to execute in different ways in the half court, and be able to do it efficiently and consistently.
And I want to say this real quick. Excuse me, Andy. It was after a timeout. Coach Sampson drew up a play, well executed. He drew up the play for Reggie Chaney. Reggie got a layup off of a great back pick by Emmanuel Sharp, and Reggie curled around that back pick and was open for right at the rim for a layup. That's confidence, but it was a great job by the players executing the play. But Coach Sampson ran up a play for Reggie Chaney. Think about that as a big man, to get him some points and reward him for Reggie's hustle and everything he does for the team. So that was good to see as well. The coach took a little dig at Reggie and Emmanuel being the two most aggressive players on the team. And he said, based on minutes, if I had to guess who fouls out, it's probably going to be Reggie or Emmanuel because they're so aggressive. Just naturally, they're so aggressive. So, but hey, it's all part of who the Cougars are. And it's another step in this team continuing to get better as the season moves along.
Yeah, Emmanuel Sharp actually fouled out of this game in 19 minutes. He had 5 fouls against Tulsa. But what I was going to say, Dayon, what you mentioned about being able to execute in the half court for this Houston Cougars team, you kind of look at the 2 games that they've lost, and really it kind of stood out against Alabama, but they had the same struggle against Temple here at the Fertitta Center. But that's kind of, I don't know if you can call it their Achilles heel, but they've kind of struggled to being able to execute in those 2 losses. Now, some of it had to do where, Kris, like you mentioned, from the topic of assist, where at times the ball would get sticky, and Kelvin Sampson kind of addressed it during this post-game availability in regards to not taking selfish shots. And I believe he said he got on Tremont Mark in this game because he took a shot that he didn't need to take. But that is a good point, Dayon, and it's something to keep an eye on, because it has been one area where they haven't necessarily executed at its best this season. Certainly, it's kind of been glaring in their 2 losses.
And I think the Alabama game, well, I remember even in St. Mary's, Coach Bennett said after the game, referring to Jamal Shead as the head of the snake.
Mm-hmm.
When some teams, because they're going to really do such a key on Marcus Sasser, that Jamal, any of the other Cougs, they don't have to go one-on-one, because that's what the opponent wants. They want the Cougs, not Marcus, to be one-on-one. Continue with the offense, ball movement, pass it around, cut, move. And if they do that, they'll be fine with Marcus being the decoy, if that is the case in particular matchups.
I think teams, too, want to force Jamal Shead to beat them. I think they want to key on Marcus, key on Harris, and force Jamal to be aggressive and look to score, and force him to beat them that way. Because when he's playmaking and doing all the things that we talk about, it makes Houston such a better team, because he's getting others involved and he's creating plays that's kind of unscripted. And so, I think that's just something else to keep an eye on. I'm sure Coach Sampson is aware of that. And so, as they just continue to put it all together, I like where they're headed.
Once again, we're coming off the heels of an 80-42 victory for the Houston Cougars. Marcus Sasser led all scorers in the game. He had 25 points on 10 of 17. Shooting is 5 of 10 from 3. Emmanuel Sharp was the second leading scorer for Houston with 13 points. He shot 4 of 9. Like I mentioned, he also had 4 rebounds in the game and had 5 fouls in the outing. Tremont Mark had 9 points. He had 9 rebounds. Jawan Roberts had 10 rebounds. Jess Walker also had 8 rebounds. And of course, Jamal Shead had 12 assists and 7 rebounds as well. As we start to wrap things up, Kris, I'm tossing it over to you. Any final takeaways from Houston's victory over Tulsa, and looking ahead at SMU, and any other comments that might stick out following Houston's victory over the Golden Hurricane?
Well, first, looking ahead to SMU beat Temple tonight by 1, 72-71. Across the very end of the final seconds of that game. And the refs called a foul on Temple's college battle, and like 2 seconds left. I'm not sure it was a foul, but hey, SMU made the free throw and won the game. And the irony of that is the Pac-12 commissioner was in the building watching SMU beat Temple. So take that for what it's worth. But the Cougs tonight, they won differently. Previous game, Jarris Walker got a lot more shots, more touches. Tonight, Marcus Sasser scored 25 points, was efficient, 25 points in not quite 27 minutes. The Cougs scored 80 points, and they had 2 guys in double figures. So it was more guys scoring points. So they won a little bit differently tonight, but they crashed the boards. Dominated Tulsa 53-27 on the glass. So another win for the Cougs to improve. And this team is winning differently depending on who the opponent is. And I think it just bodes well for the rest of the season. And if we're going to wrap it up that way, I guess you can find me on Twitter at the HR Review, HoustonRoundBarReview.com, Houston Roundbar Review on Instagram and TikTok, Houston Roundbar Review on YouTube, of course, as we're watching here. Let's Rage Coogs. And Deion, you got it, man.
Yeah, just like Kris said, Houston can beat you in a plethora of ways. And just according to the team that they're playing, they do what's needed to win that game. I think that's the mark of a good team, to be able to win in different ways. But of course, you can find me on all social media platforms at Deion Dunlap. Appreciate all the support. Got new stuff constantly coming. It's a new intro, new merch coming. So keep being locked in with us, man. We appreciate the support.
Kris, you gave me an idea for one more topic I want to throw around. It's your segment, but I do like to remind everybody that they are watching and listening to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Once again, if you haven't done so already, take the time to hit like on this video. It really helps us out. And of course, while you're at it, subscribe to the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. And while you're at it, put on your search bar Pod Slam a Jam like you see it on the screen on YouTube, and go subscribe to our channel as well, because it does help us out. If you are in the Instagram and TikTok business, be sure to follow us as well. Let's Rage Coogs, all lowercase, no extra symbols, just Let's Rage Coogs on those platforms. And of course, Pod Slam a Jamma on Twitter, and you can find my personal Twitter at Aonis_5. We're also going to take a bit of a break. The next Let's Rage Coogs won't be until next Thursday, so it's going to be a while. But what I was going to say, now that SMU beat Temple, is Memphis really the only team that has a chance at making an NCAA tournament from stopping the American at being a one-bid league? Or, of course, if another team catches fire barring another team catching fire in the postseason tournament and stealing Houston's bid, that is Memphis really the only team left out there, left standing in the American, that could win an outright bid in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, based on everything the bracketology guys are saying, guys and I guess women too, have Memphis is like first 4 in or last 4 in, something. They're like on the border. So looks like it's just a 2-bid lead for the American.
At best.
Cougs, at best, that's it. At best, a Temple, their non-conference losses have hurt them, and of course, losing at SMU tonight will not help them at all. So Memphis is the other team that has a chance to get to the tournament from this conference. But next year will not be an issue for the Cougs. So Big 12 is way more than a 2-bid league. So just keep that in mind. A few more weeks of this in the American, and it'll be Houston in the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep my eye on that, because it's funny. They give Memphis credit for their non-conference wins, but they don't give teams like Tulane credit for beating Memphis twice, who beat other teams head-to-head like Texas A&M and Auburn. So I don't understand it, but who knows, man? As long as Houston gets in, who cares?
That's who I am, because
that's a great point.
I'm really I'm tired of trying to figure out the dislike of the American Conference from the national perspective. So I just, whatever. A few more weeks of this and we're done. Just focus on the Big 12 going forward. So yeah.
Just one more month left in the American Athletic Conference when it comes to basketball. Now, for what it's worth, Memphis is currently ranked 46 in the net ranking. So theory, they should be one of those NCAA tournament teams. There's still a lot left to be decided from between now and a month from now when it's Selection Sunday. I believe it'll be 4 weeks from this coming Sunday when Selection Sunday.
March
The distance
12th.
between
Yeah,
Selection
March
Sunday.
12th. Yeah.
So we're getting closer. We're slowly inching away. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Once again, the final score from inside the Fertitta Center, where both Kris and I are at. If you couldn't tell from the background, we're inside the Fertitta Center. Final score: Houston victorious, 80-42. Marcus Sasser led Houston with 25 points on 10 of 17 shooting. Our next Let's Rage Coogs post-game show presented by the Saxenian Family will be Thursday, following Houston's game against SMU. For Kris Gardner, Day on Dunlap, I thank you guys for being able to be a part of this show and taking the time out of your nights to be able to watch us for hashtag Let's Rage Coogs After Dark, or if you're listening audio only, whenever, just to still be able to take time out of your day to listen to us. And as always, Dayon, you will get the final word.
Let's go, Cougs.